Improvement Pill here. I've been talking about investing, the economy, and wealth in general a lot more on this channel because of the current world situation, and a lot of you have been asking me about what I've been investing in. So today I want to pull back the curtain a bit and show you how I'm currently allocating my wealth, what I'm investing in, and also why. Now, just a little disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor or an investing expert. This is not financial advice. I'm just here to show you what I'm currently doing with my money. Everything I'm about to say is just my opinion. Do not copy what I'm doing. It's up to you to do your own research on any of these asset classes if you want to invest in them. With that being said, let's get started. So starting off, I have about 25% of my total wealth sitting in cash. Now, the thing about cash is that it's not the best place to park your money in the long term. But since I'm holding onto the dollar, it's going to lose about 1 to 2% of its value every single year due to inflation. But I believe the US dollar is going to do pretty well compared to the other currencies of the world because it's the world's reserve currency. So I think it's a pretty safe place to park this wealth for now. Most other currencies are currently experiencing far worse inflation rates. And I also don't plan on holding onto this cash for too long, maybe just a couple of months, because I eventually plan on moving this wealth into other asset classes if and when I spot the right opportunities. Next up, I have about 5% invested in the stock market. I know this sounds extremely low, but right now the stock market feels overvalued to me. The world economy is in the toilet, yet the S&P has almost fully recovered. I just don't feel comfortable storing much of my wealth in a place that no longer seems to play by the rules. It makes me worry too much. But if the market crashes, I'll definitely buy the dip and increase my position in the market. And for those of you that are wondering what little stocks I do currently own, well, they're actually all mining stocks, which brings us to my next investment. I have about 15% of my wealth stored in physical gold bullion. Now, I know a lot of people say that gold's a terrible investment because it's hard to store and because it doesn't make you more money. First of all, it's not hard to store. I'm keeping all of my physical gold and silver in vaults in Singapore and New Zealand, so I don't have to worry about getting robbed because it's all insured. And they also charge me less than 0.5% per year to store it. So that's a pretty good deal for peace of mind. And second of all, in regards to making you more money, it really depends on what part of history you look at. If you look at American history, sure, the stock market has outperformed gold most of the time. But if you look at all of history, gold has retained its value for thousands of years. Dozens of empires and markets have risen and fallen, and yet gold is still here. Yeah, sure, it doesn't make you more money, but at least it retains its value. Cash flow is not king if the cash itself is losing value. Also, using a concept that I mentioned before in a previous video, I believe investing in gold right now is a smart bet, meaning that it's a bet that I think is worth taking because the potential upside far outweighs the potential downside. Let me explain. I think there's a 60% chance that my investment here will double or even triple over the course of the next 5 years, and a 40% chance that it'll lose maybe 30% to 50% of its value. Again, this is just what I think. I'm pulling these numbers out of thin air based on my research. You got to do your own research and come to your own conclusions as to whether or not it really is a smart bet. The reason I believe this is because the current world situation is basically what gold enthusiasts have been waiting decades for. Central banks around the world are printing money nonstop. Money printer go brrrr. There's a ton of uncertainty in the air. There's probably going to be a second wave of infections. And I believe that all of this combined gives gold a slightly higher chance of coming out on top. Next up, I have about 20% of my wealth stored in physical silver bullion. Silver is kind of like gold in that it was used as a form of money for thousands of years in history. But silver also plays another important role as an industrial metal. In fact, roughly 80% of silver demand is for industrial purposes. It's used in things like electric cars, solar panels, phones, and computers. So I don't think silver can drop too much, even in the worst case scenario. Also, there's something called the gold-silver ratio. I don't know if this matters at all, but it seems convincing to me. Basically, in the earth, there's only about a 1-to-20 ratio of gold to silver, meaning that for every ounce of gold, there's only about 20 ounces of silver that exists on planet Earth. Yet the current gold to silver ratio in regards to price is above 100, meaning that you can buy over 100 ounces of silver for the price of just 1 ounce of gold. And I feel like this means that silver is extremely undervalued right now, which is why I have more of my wealth invested in silver than I have in gold. In terms of my smart bet calculations that I'm going to pull out of thin air, I personally believe that there's a 50% chance that silver will 3 to 5x and a 50% chance that it'll lose up to 50% of its value over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. It all really depends if my gold call is right or not. If gold goes up, silver usually follows, and if it does, it usually goes up far more, based on history. Of course, there is a counter-argument to all of this. If the world economy gets hit extremely hard and the industrial demand for silver drops immensely for years to come, then that would be pretty bad for silver, which is why I think there's a slightly lower chance that this smart bet will pay off. And finally, I have the remaining percent of my wealth in cryptocurrencies, about 80% of which is in Bitcoin, 15% in Ethereum, and the rest in altcoins. I know this sounds extremely crazy, and it is, but the reason I'm doing this is because I believe that this is a once-in-a-lifetime smart bet. I believe that Bitcoin has a 40% chance of increasing 50-fold and a 60% chance of it going to zero over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. Yes, you heard me correctly. I genuinely believe that there is a 40% chance that it could 50x my initial investment. See, recently I went down a sort of Bitcoin rabbit hole. I've probably watched 100 hours of Bitcoin videos on both sides of the argument over the course of the last month. I've also binge read a bunch of books on the subject, one of which, if you're interested, is called The Bitcoin Standard, which basically argues that Bitcoin is the ultimate form of money and could become like gold 2.0. If this actually happens and people around the world start viewing it as such, which from what I can tell has actually been sort of happening with more institutional investors like Paul Tudor Jones buying in, then it could actually 50x in value, maybe even more. But there are a lot of things that could go wrong. It is still a new technology, so there might be some unknown factors that could cause it to fail, which is why I personally think that there's a 60% chance that it could go to zero. Now, you might be wondering, well, if that's the case, Improvement Pill, why are you risking so much? Well, the reason I'm taking this bet is because, quite frankly, I don't think there will be another smart bet with such insane returns for at least a couple of decades. So I kind of see this as like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so I'm willing to gamble a significant portion of my wealth on this bet. If I'm right, I'll probably cash out, buy a ton of real estate, and never have to worry about money again. If I'm wrong, oh well, I'll be able to make the money back in 2 to 3 years. So I'm basically betting 2 to 3 years of my life for the opportunity to gain financial freedom for decades to come. And again, I'm not suggesting that you throw your life savings into Bitcoin because, like I said before, I think there's a 60% chance that it'll go to zero. You have a higher chance of losing everything, so don't do it. Now, I'm actually curious how the other finance and self-help channels are investing right now. I think if we all showcased our portfolio allocations, it would allow the viewers on this platform to get a better idea on what asset classes to do more research on. It will allow them to look at the world situation from many different perspectives. So Graham, Stefan, Andre, Jick, Dave Ramsey, and other channels that talk about finance, and self-help channels like Thomas Frank, Better Ideas, and Matt Davelli too, because wealth is a huge component of self-improvement. I'm curious as to how you guys are currently allocating your wealth. Maybe you guys can make a response to this video and also showcase your portfolios. For anyone that's watching, help me reach out to these creators, send them an email or comment on their latest video, and maybe we can spark a wider discussion on this topic. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and again, I do not recommend that you do what I'm doing. This is an extremely high-risk portfolio that could very well cause me to lose most of my savings. Besides that, guys, stay safe and stay tuned.